Hello, friends. Welcome back. As you can see, this is clearly a new day. I've changed my t-shirt. And as I sit here recording episode number 3, it occurred to me that in my I think it was episode 1 teaser at the end of the video, I had mentioned superheroes, consciousness, quantum physics, and cancer. And as I thought about recording this next video, I realized that I never addressed the cancer component. And so I think what I need to do now is start here because, in fact, it's my own journey with cancer that really has been the impetus or the catalyst and the motivation for me to do this project. So, so this is where I'll begin. In 2017, when I was 47 years old, I was running as I had been doing for a number of years. I was running outdoors. I had my music going. I had an armband on my arm with my phone and my music, and I was just getting to the end of my run, and looked down for maybe a second to press stop on my device. And in that moment where I wasn't looking, I actually smashed into a stop sign pole. Mark that for later. Stop sign. Okay. I smashed into a stop sign pole face first. And I was pretty concussed. I was very confused. It took me about half an hour, I think, to get from that place back to my house, when in fact I was only about a 2-minute walk away. But I was so confused I couldn't work out how to get home, and I ended up having the wherewithal to turn on my maps on my phone and try to navigate myself back to my street, which I did successfully, except that I completely passed my house. And when I got to the edge of the street, I recognized the park and I thought, I think I live back there. Anyway, to make a very long story a little bit shorter, I got home and went to the hospital, had a scan to make sure that there was no internal bleeding. And through that scan, it was discovered that I had a form of cancer, a form of brain cancer called glioblastoma, which turned out to be grade 4 glioblastoma. Now, there's a lot that I want to say about my experience with that, but I think the most important thing that I want to do in this moment is to send out an invitation to anyone who might be experiencing or has experienced or knows somebody who has experienced glioblastoma or any other cancer for that matter, and to say very clearly that looking at the prognoses that are available on Dr. Google, and all of the information that one might find online is not the end of the story. When I first got my diagnosis, it was terrifying, of course. There were so many things that I was experiencing, but one of the things that became clear to me was the amount of fear that was being augmented in my already fearful state by the information that I was reading out there about the prognosis of somebody with glioblastoma, which is not that great according to the scientific journals and the mainstream outlets where one usually goes to find information about medical situations. So I say that because that was over 8 years ago. And had I listened to that information, I probably wouldn't be here sitting talking to you today. Okay, so um, again, my hope is that anyone who might be in a place of fear regarding a diagnosis or an illness can uh, use my story as a springboard of hope, um, to know that there is so much more possible than we are taught to believe. Okay. Um, Now, in a way, even though I was diagnosed with the glioblastoma in my mid to late 40s, in a way, that was the beginning of my story. And um, in order to start from that beginning, I actually have to go back a little bit further in time, um, to connect with what I was talking about in the first two videos. Okay, so if you're still with me, here goes. Um, Again, let me just say that uh, I'm going to do my best to be as concise as I can, but I'm also going to try to be as clear as I can. And so hang out with me for as long as you can handle it. Press pause if you need to. Hopefully, I'll still be here when you get back. Okay, so in the last video, I was talking about my utter joy and excitement at discovering that life itself was a gift and that I had the privilege to be a part of it. Um, and that knowing, and I call it a knowing because it wasn't just a thought or an idea, it was a deep knowing that I felt in the deepest part of my very being. I felt so lucky to be alive, as I still do, of course. And what I also knew at that time, I was probably in my, like I said, in my early 20s. I also knew that there were so many other people in the world who had never been given the opportunity to have that insight. In other words, there were so many other people struggling in the world with dealing with the messiness of life, that they may never have been turned on to the fact that this life is a divine gift, an incredibly well organized, intelligent aliveness that is living through our very being. And so, what that knowing did for me was it changed my sense of who I was. It completely shifted my worldview. It brought me from a place of being extremely self-conscious, having very low self-esteem, being afraid to talk to people, being insecure about who I was in the world, how I appeared. More to say about all that later. But it completely pulled the rug out from under that worldview that I had and changed my sense of self. It deepened my sense of who I was, and it expanded my sense of who I was and who I wanted to be. And what I really wanted to do in that moment was share that with anyone else who would be able to benefit from that. And I think that that moment has been the defining theme throughout the rest of my life, up until even this very moment. And so from that place, I went on to do work with youth in crisis, youth who are living on the street, because I thought, well, who really needs to know that they are more than their circumstances? Young people who have never been told that they are anything more than the worst. And so I began working as a counselor with youth in crisis, which has been a transformative experience in my life. And while doing that, I also went on to do a master's degree in education with a focus on the relationship between spirituality, consciousness, and quantum theory. Okay, without making this all about a resume, I thought it was important to say that because um, those experiences have well they served um, as stepping stones into what then became the next stages of my life, um, which is what I want to get into in a few minutes, which then will make more clear why I said earlier that the glioblastoma was really the new beginning for me. Okay, so I'll make this a little bit more concise. Uh, I was doing work with the youth. I had finished my degree, and I wanted to continue sharing these deep questions about what it means to be human. The excitement that I was feeling uh, around the questions related to the mystery of being alive. And so I was able to begin teaching in the humanities department at a college. And I did that for a few years, and my courses related to questions of what it means to be authentic, um, what it means to be human with values, how values serve us to um, follow the right path in our life, and things of that nature. And then it didn't take long before I realized that something was missing for me. Uh, I would walk through the halls of the college and see colleagues, and it just somehow never felt like my place. Um, sure, the classes were great. It was wonderful interacting with the students, but it felt like there was a part of me that wasn't honoring who I truly was at the deepest level. Now, this is a place to pause and say that um, growing up, from the time I was a young teenager, I had always been really excited about fashion and clothing. And what I understand now is having grown up um, in the 80s, um, I think that the fashion or being able to express myself through my clothing was perhaps one of the only ways that I knew how to really express myself in the world. Um, I didn't feel like I had a voice. I was living as a closeted man at a time which was the height of the AIDS crisis. I was afraid for my life because of that. Um, we certainly weren't living in a society uh, where there were gay role models that were not just sort of the butt of jokes. Oh, no pun intended. Sorry. So I didn't have any role models. But looking back now, I know that my ability to express myself through my clothing was so much fun and really allowed me um, to shine in the way that I could in a unique way for me. Okay, moving forward back to where we were, me teaching in college. Um, as I as I struggled with not being fully in my place, I started to realize that what I had been denying was my joy of clothing. Yes, my joy of fashion. And it had taken me a while to really remember how important, or to bring to the forefront of my mind, how important style was for me, or fashion. Um, let's call it style, because fashion is something that's trendy. Style is something that one uses to express one's uniqueness in the world, I think. And I realized at some point that the reason I had um, suppressed that part of me as something being important or vital to the way I wanted to live my life was because I had discovered how meaningful it was to engage subjects of spirituality, um, and the big questions about who we are, why we're here, what are we, who are we, how did we get here? The questions that have been asked since the beginning of time by our species. And somehow I thought that clothing was just superficial. I thought, how can I um, possibly do anything in my life that's meaningful if all I'm doing is working with clothing? Um, they just seemed incompatible to me. And then it hit me. I thought clothing allowed me to tap into an inner resource in myself that allowed me to express myself in an authentic way. It gave me an element of power in the world that I wasn't able to access before that joy came into my life. And when I realized that, I recognized that clothing, in fact, was not just a superficial device or medium, but rather it had the potential and the power to allow people to really, really tap into and express who they are, to speak to the world without using their voice. And when I got that and I recognized how important it was for me, I thought, now I can come back to that path. And so um, I was going to say, as fate would have it, perhaps, as God would have it, as as life would lead me to have it, uh, I began. Well, I had decided that what I was going to do was help people dress. Um, I decided that what really got me excited was the idea of helping people find the right clothes to help them express who they are in the world. And uh, that led me into a series of synchronicities, which now I call them miracles because that seems to just be what they are. Um, Divine interventions, putting divine paving stones in front of me, one at a time, hoping that I'll see them and step onto them so that I can find my right path in the world. And so the miracles led me to begin work as a personal fashion stylist, um, which I'm still doing today and have done now for the last 21 years. Okay. Um, in this experience, there has been so much joy and so much pleasure and so many beautiful relationships with clients who have sometimes for the first time as older people, adults, um, discovered the joy in finally feeling good in their bodies, in their clothing, finally having the courage to express who they are and finding all the power that that offers. Okay, I can go on and on about that, but I won't for now, unless somebody asks, I can. But the important thing about that part of the journey is that in the years in doing that work, I stopped intentionally exploring the spiritual realm of my being. And I continue to live my life joyfully and have fun. But what happened was I ended up falling into a path that I think many people do, where I stopped listening to my intuitive voice. I could talk about it in theory because I knew from my earlier life, from the beginning, that all of this is extraordinary, that we are gifted just to be here. But I wasn't living with the full power of that knowing behind me in my moment to moment. And so there were times in my life where I would slip up and behave unskillfully. For example, I would engage in um, um, small talk, in gossip, and you know, sometimes I would become a monster behind the wheel of the steering wheel and honk very unnecessarily at people who were just driving a little bit slower than me. Um, Now, I say that because uh, I don't want to give anyone the impression that I became a horrible person because I lost contact with my spiritual nature. But I forgot to pay attention to it. I forgot to pay attention to it. And as a result of that, um, whenever I did behave unskillfully in the world, engaging, for example, in idle gossip or doing some other silly thing that might have been offensive to someone um, or offensive to me, I always felt something deep inside of me that was resisting doing that. Some part of me that said, that's not cool. That's not cool. Don't do that. But I was so caught up in the day-to-day world of, getting up, going to work, having fun, living my life, that the deeper dimension was being ignored. And it was so obvious to me. It was staring me right in the face. Every time I would do something that seemed to go against the grain of my soul, I knew it, but I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay attention. I'm thinking about one of my teachers who refers to that state of mind perhaps as not having ADD, but IDD. I had intention deficit disorder. Thank you, Bruce Lipton, for that amazing acronym. I had IDD, intention deficit disorder. If you don't know Bruce Lipton, please check him out. Bruce, Lipton. Okay, now we're getting to the part where I started from. I was running. I hit the stop sign pole, was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor, and that changed everything. Now, this feels like the right time to pause, so I will. And I hope that you'll join me next time where I will continue the story and continue to offer hope through my story to anyone who's looking for a friend along the way in this beautiful, 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 divinely given adventure. Thanks for joining. Blessings. See you soon.